Hello, this is Will. Today I'll be showing you how to make a smeltery and how to use your smeltery to make your first iron pick with Tinker's Constructs. The first thing you're going to want to do is to find a source of clay. Clay is one of the main ingredients in Tinker's Constructs smelteries, and it is often easier to find clay in the Twilight Forest if you have that mod installed. Otherwise, I suggest looking around various rivers and lakes, though you're more likely to only find them deep underwater, which can be difficult sometimes. You're going to want to collect at least 2 stacks of clay. You can easily reduce the amount of space the clay takes up in your inventory by crafting them into clay blocks again. Now that you've secured your clay, you're going to need to go and find a large supply of sand. Usually you can, of course, find this in a desert. Collect about 4 times as much sand as clay. As for every 1 clay block you use in the recipe, you're probably going to use 4 sand blocks. The thing you'll need to collect is at least a stack of gravel. You'll find that it is probably more difficult to get this much gravel. I happen to have this gravel off-site, so I just picked it up. But normally, I would suggest getting your gravel as you mine. In addition to this, I suggest that you do your work in your mining area or create a dedicated room on that level, as you will need lava access, and it is much easier to get if you're underground. The next thing you're going to need to do is secure enough fuel, such as coal, to smelt the product you're going to get from crafting using these to create grout. To create grout, generally you put the clay block at the top, then you put the sand like this, and then the gravel like this. You may want to use NEI to determine if this is the correct recipe for you, because it does change occasionally. Now that we have 2 stacks of grout, we're going to want to put the grout to cook in our furnaces. Now that we're nearly done smelting, we can start crafting our first required items for making a smeltery. The first thing you're going to want to do is put all your seared bricks in this on the outside to get your smeltery controller. As it just said, it is the thing that controls your entire smeltery, and it is where you'll be putting in your ores generally. The next thing we want to make, and you'll need 1 glass for this, is the seared tank, which is the same recipe as the controller but with a piece of glass in the center. Next, you're going to need to make a seared faucet. This allows you to output your... This is a thing that you'll need to output from the next block you're going to make, the smeltery drain. What you do is you place your smeltery drain, and then you place the faucet on the drain. After this, you're going to need somewhere to put output onto. You're going to either want to craft a casting table, or you're going to want to create a casting basin. Eventually you'll have to make both, as you'll find that for ore processing purposes, the casting basin is much more efficient since you output full blocks into it. The advantage, of course, to the casting table, and the one we're actually going to make right now, is that you need this to make any metal parts. The last thing we're going to need to do is just to make a bunch of seared bricks. You might not initially have enough. As you can see, I only have 12, but I'll start building my Smeltery to show you how to get started at my Smeltery site. As you can see, I've cleared away a nice, somewhat large area that is relatively close to a pool of lava for me to put my Smeltery in. The first thing I'm going to want to do is to dig a 3x3 hole in the ground. This is where I'm going to put the first 9 blocks of our Smeltery. Like so. Next we're going to fill out the walls, ignoring the corners, as it isn't necessary to actually add that. This isn't always the best setup, but I find that it's what I prefer generally for a starting basin. Now, as you can see, you can easily accidentally place the way you place the drain block, but I'm not entirely sure whether it actually matters. As you can see, the faucet was placed quite nicely. The reason I generally start off with this is that you end up with this nice flat surface where your work is going to go to. So the next thing we're going to need to do is get ourselves a bucket of lava. Now, unfortunately, my bucket is currently full of water, so I'm going to dig a hole to put that water in. You may want to have water on hand close by to your smeltery, just in case you have any accidents. So now, as you can see, well, actually, as you can't see, it doesn't actually say anything. Sometimes that'll happen, but you can trust relatively reliably to see, to look at what's actually in the tank to know how much lava you've got left. The next thing you're going to want to do, if you have the materials, is to smelt some aluminum ore and some copper. But if you don't, like for instance, I don't currently have enough, you can also substitute for gold, and that should do fine for now. But the advantage to what I'm planning on showing you is that it's cheaper to make casts using aluminum and copper than it is to use gold. In fact, I think I'll go and get myself some copper and more aluminum, or aluminium, as it is now supposed to be called. That's a recent change in the way we say it. Now that I have 8 copper and 24 aluminum, or yeah, I'll say aluminum. That's how I've always said it. The scientists might have agreed to change the way we say the word, but I'm no scientist, so I'm not going to bother. Right, so what you need is 1 copper per 3 aluminum. Now, the great advantage of the smeltery is that it can process ores in parallel instead of one at a time. It's a little slower, to be honest, in the end, individually, But you make up when you have quite a large smeltery and you're dealing with large quantities of ore in a significantly less time. So I'll stop and wait for this to smelt, and then I'll show you how to make it your first cast. Now that our copper is about finished, you can see we have 12 ingots of aluminum, and very soon the smeltery will mix the copper that it is smelting now with that aluminum to make aluminum brass. The first thing you're going to want to make makes use of these leftover seared bricks. The ingot cast is useful for getting individual ingots out. Now, as you can see, we have 15 left. The next thing you're going to need to do is go back to your regular Tinker's Construct setup. Now that we're here, back at my Tinker's Construct tutorial workshop, we're going to have to make the parts we're going to want to cast again. But this time we're not going to use them in a tool. It doesn't really matter what material you're using. With some materials you can re-smelt them, metals particularly, but that doesn't always seem to work very well, so I don't usually do that. If you haven't already done so, you're going to want to also make a rod pattern, as you're going to make all of your new tools parts out of iron. Iron has a higher multiplier than the wooden tool rod at a 1.3 times modifier. It also has a much higher durability than cobblestone and wood, as you may expect. It is actually probably more durable than a regular iron pickaxe, not to mention that all you have to do to repair it is use 1 iron per piece. So I can probably make the wooden tool rod with... It's actually probable that you didn't need that at all, to be honest. Right. But it'll be useful later when I show you the last part of the pickaxe. We're going to make these two parts, definitely, out of iron. But there's another material you may have already found that I'd like to show you that is even better at this point than iron. Now that we're back at our smeltery, like with the ingot, all you have to do to make your new cast is to put it on the table and then right click on the seared faucet. Once you're done with the pickaxe head and your new tool binding, you can pretty quickly just dispose of the head, as it has minimal use afterwards. And as you can see, we've only used up 3 out of our 16, whereas we would have already used up all the gold. While we wait, and since we don't have a reason to use this, we'll start smelting our iron. I would actually suggest doing 9 at a time, generally. And at this point I would spend more time creating a second drain and a second faucet so that I can output full blocks rather than having to output one at a time. So while our iron smelts, I thought I'd come and show you something you're going to want to look at for on your travels early on. This is a slime island. Often you can find them randomly dotting the landscape. Generally, when you're first starting off, you're going to need to build a tower to get up there, but I happen to have a jetpack. So I'll save us some time with building one. When we get up here, you'll see that the grass is made of slime. The trees are actually made of congealed slime, green slime, slimy leaves. You generally want to pick up the leaves, as they occasionally, on a rare, they'll drop slime tree saplings, which grow more slime trees. These aren't really the most... Not only are these islands quite high in the sky, of course, they're also the natural spawning ground for the blue slime. In previous versions, the blue slime was the easiest to obtain large quantities of and more useful material. More recently, though, the green slime has become better for making tools. So we're just going to collect some of this green slime. And I'm going to use one of the more advanced tools that you can get from Tinker's Construct to cut down the leaves. I'll soon return to our smeltery and show you how to use the slime to create a slime crystal, which allows you to make one of the better handles you can get in the game. Now we've come back to our Tinker's workshop to show you how to make blue slime mud. First, you're going to want to take your congealed blue slime and break it down into 4 slime balls. Next, you're going to want to put the 4 slime balls, 1 sand and 1 dirt, into your crafting station. After this, you're going to want to smelt the slime mud using whatever material you want. Yeah, generally, if you're only doing one plank will be sufficient, or a few sticks, alternatively. Now that we've smelted the slime mud to get a slime crystal, we'll put the slime crystal in the crafting table, and we will craft 2 slime rods. In the past, green and blue slime were worth more than they are apparently now. Now both green and blue slime will provide you a 1.5 handle modifier, which is still better than iron, though green or blue used to be 2. There was a switch at some point, and now they're equal. I thought I might come and show you the book entry on this, because apparently they are not equal. They haven't really... I'm guessing that either they were just showing us... I was probably looking at the mining speed earlier. So blue slime is generally going to be your best choice right now for slime tool rods. But as you can see, the mining level and base attack are 0, so you really should not use these for tools. They will make horrible tools, but they are really great for using as rods. Now that your iron is smelted and you have the slime tool rod, if you have the slime tool rod, if you're unable to find any slime, I would suggest making the cast of the rod, which you can probably just use a stick to do. In any case, whichever you choose, to place a cast, You put it on top of the casting table, and then you right click on the seared faucet. Each cast has a different material cost. The head of a basic tool always has a 1, whereas the tool parts like the tool binding are always going to be about half. So we're going to actually, because we have desire to save material, and I'm going to make 2. But I would suggest thinking kind of parallel along this. You may want to make a sword. So you would go to your stencil table and make the appropriate part to make that sword. Now that we have our iron head, iron binding, and our slime tool rod, we're going to go to a tool station such as this. Go to our pickaxe and just put it together like a normal pickaxe. Now, as you can see, because of the iron was the head. We didn't have the best durability, but we probably would have had less durability if we hadn't used a slime rod. And I think recently the mod has been somewhat balanced considering how high the durability used to be. So a last note about using your smeltery. You're definitely going to want to empty your smeltery before putting anything else in. I can't stress this enough. There are a number of good reasons to do it, but the primary reason is just to stay organized, which is important when you're trying to get things finished in a efficient manner. Well, this has been my tutorial on how to create a smeltery and make your first pickaxe. Next time, I think I'll start off showing you how to make a hammer, which is the first of the more advanced tools you'll want to make. Have a nice evening.